Let's dive into one of history's most genuinely unsettling medical mysteries. This is the true story of an 18th century Frenchman known only as Tarrare. His hunger was so completely bottomless, so all-consuming, that his life became, well, a real-life horror story.
To get a picture of just how extreme this was, listen to this. It's from Dr. Pierre-François Percy, the military surgeon who actually studied him. This wasn't just a big appetite. It was a condition that took over his entire existence, right down to the foul, visible vapor that people said literally rose from his body. And this is the central paradox of Tarrare, the thing that's so hard to wrap your head around. At 17, he weighed only 100 pounds. 100 pounds! But he could eat his own body weight in meat in a single day. We're talking a quarter of a bullock. It just doesn't seem possible. So what did a condition like this actually do to a person's body? Let's take a closer look at the physical toll of this voracious anomaly. His body was physically warped to try and accommodate this hunger. I mean, when his stomach was empty, his skin was so loose he could wrap the folds from his belly all the way around his waist. But after he ate, his stomach would swell up like a giant balloon. His mouth was abnormally wide, and his throat was basically just a huge, cavernous opening to a completely tormented digestive system. Now, there is a medical term for this. It's called polyphagia. But Tarrare's case was so off-the-charts severe, it almost defies any modern comparison. This wasn't just being hungry. This was a biological compulsion that overrode everything else: pain, disgust, even the basic instinct for self-preservation. You can imagine his parents they couldn't feed him. They kicked him out of the house. He winds up on the streets of Paris, where he actually turns his affliction into a kind of bizarre spectacle. He joins this troupe of street performers and would swallow absolutely anything for a crowd: corks, stones, even whole baskets of apples, one after another. Eventually, his life as a performer led him to enlist in the French Revolutionary Army. But what was once a weird sideshow act, well, it quickly became a very serious medical crisis that completely baffled the military doctors. The army was just shocked by his condition. He was emaciated. So they immediately put him on quadruple rations, 4 times the food of a normal soldier. But you know what? It wasn't nearly enough. He was still perpetually starving, so desperate that he had to scavenge through the garbage just to survive. His hunger pushed him to consume things that weren't even food. I mean, while in the hospital, he ate the poultices, the medicated cloths they'd put on wounds, right off of other patients. Anything and everything was fair game. And his diet just escalated horrifically. It started with garbage, right? But soon he was hunting and eating live animals: stray cats, dogs, even snakes. In one infamous demonstration for a group of doctors, they gave him a live eel. He crushed its head with his teeth and then just swallowed it whole. Okay, this is where the story takes a turn that is so surreal, it's almost comical. Some military minds actually tried to weaponize his unique condition. The plan was as simple as it was completely bizarre. Tarrare would swallow a wooden box that had a secret message inside. He'd then cross enemy lines disguised as a peasant and, well, retrieve the box after it had passed through his system. His reward for a successful test run: a wheelbarrow filled with 30 pounds of raw bull's lungs and liver, which he devoured right there on the spot. So what could possibly go wrong with this foolproof plan? Well, there was one tiny, fatal flaw. Tarrare, the man they chose to be a covert operative deep inside Prussian territory, couldn't speak a single word of German. Not one. Yeah, he was captured almost immediately. The Prussians beat him, they chained him to a latrine until he finally passed the box, only to discover the message inside was just a test. They were furious. They staged a mock execution before sending the completely traumatized Tarrare back to the French army. And that experience, it broke him. He begged Dr. Percy to find a cure, to do anything to rid him of this all-consuming hunger. But instead of finding a cure, he just spiraled into his darkest chapter yet. Dr. Percy's notes from this time are just chilling. Tarrare had become this figure of such menace that even the stray animals in the area seemed to know he was a threat. They would literally flee from him on sight. At this point, his hunger had just erased all moral boundaries. He was caught drinking blood directly from patients during bloodletting procedures. He snuck into the morgue to eat corpses. And then came the final, unthinkable horror. A 14-month-old baby vanished from the hospital. Tarrare was the immediate suspect, and an angry mob drove him from the hospital for good.
4 years went by, complete silence. Then, one day, Dr. Percy gets a letter. Tarrare had resurfaced at a hospital in Versailles. He was dying, finally succumbing to a lifetime of internal abuse. He was just 26 years old when he died. The cause was listed as a combination of advanced tuberculosis and what doctors at the time just called a purulent and fetid diarrhea. His body began to rot so quickly, and the stench was so unbearable that the surgeons didn't even want to perform an autopsy. But Dr. Percy insisted, and what they found inside was a chamber of horrors. His esophagus was so wide you could literally see directly down into his stomach, a stomach that was described as a gigantic, ulcerated bag that filled most of his abdominal cavity. All of his internal organs were grotesquely enlarged, rotten, and just swimming in pus. The autopsy revealed the gruesome what of his condition, but it couldn't answer the fundamental question, why? The mystery of what caused this monstrous appetite. It outlived the man himself. So what's our best guess today? Well, modern medicine has a few theories. Could it have been extreme hyperthyroidism, just pushing his metabolism into a constant, uncontrollable overdrive? Or maybe a damaged amygdala, the part of the brain that regulates appetite. Some have even pointed to rare genetic disorders like Prader-Willi syndrome. But really, in the end, we can only speculate.
In the end, even the doctor who dedicated so much time to studying Tarrare struggled to define their relationship. It was this strange mix of scientific fascination, medical duty, and just profound human tragedy. And really, that's the question his story leaves us with. When you strip away all the ghoulish tales of eating live animals and corpses, what you're left with is a man who was tormented by a body he simply could not control. It's a medical horror story, for sure, but it's also a deeply human one.